to let people in.
Commissioner Oldenburg, good evening, welcome. You may not remember this, but we met during the ward redistricting process at Eastern Market, and I actually emailed you a few months ago about this whole process. So I saw your name and I was like, I gotta say hello and welcome you. And she's frozen.
This conversation. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently my connection is weak. I just wanted to thank you for remembering. I now recall we had a nice conversation.
Yeah. Now, did you tell me that you live next to Eastern Market or a few blocks away? I think we're still a little frozen.
Nice to see you again.
I'm sorry?
I'm about 5 blocks from Eastern Market.
Oh, okay. All right. No worries. No worries. Well, congratulations and welcome to Ward 8.
Well, I'm actually still a resident of Ward 6, and I think I'm here because part of my SMD is now in Ward 8.
Yeah, so for the redistricting committee, only those that's impacted are to serve on the committee. That's a rule from the committee, from Councilmember Silverman's committee, and the rule in the charter. So only those that's actually impacted should be serving on the Ward 8 Task Force Redistricting Committee.
So are you speaking about me? I was invited by yourself to join this committee, but I'm willing to.
Yeah, yes, I thought that you were impacted, but those that's in your SMD that's impacted should be a part of this. So I reached out to all the current ANC commissioners to inform them of the meeting, to inform their constituents that this meeting was taking place, 1, to join, and 2, if they did not want to become a member, that they could still be a part and listen in the general, as a general population.
Well, that's fine. I'll back out. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
No problem. And thank you for your service. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, we're up to 37. Let's see. We'll give it another minute or two and we'll go ahead and get started. Can we get the opening remarks from the council member in about 2 minutes? Would that work?
Wanda, how many people have come in already?
We have 38 people thus far.
All right, so we get 1 minute, we won't get started. Have we started the Facebook Live yet?
Yes, it has started already.
All right, well, let's start, guys. I mean, I want to be getting the practice of starting on time. You know, we want to respect everyone's time. We know it's in the evening and people got things to do. And so welcome. My name is Trayon White. I am the council member of the Great Ward 8. And we want to welcome you all to the Ward 8 Redistricting Task Force. That's all good. We are led by Commissioner Brian Thompson, who is the chair of the Ward 8 Redistricting Task Force. And tonight we will be tasked with delegating responsibilities in different sectors to ensure we have a healthy landing to integrate our new Ward 8 residents from Ward 6. And so it's been a very lengthy process from meeting with Councilmember Silverman, Councilmember Grades, Councilmember Allen, to the community conversations, to our advisory neighborhood commissioners. And I want to thank everyone for their service. As you know, we are in a time crunch trying to get this done before the council takes a vote, and this is by volunteer only. And so we appreciate your service you do in the community each and every day. We want to welcome our Ward 8 advisory neighborhood commissioners and our new residents and Ward 8 and Ward 6 ANC commissioners and residents. And so we want to thank you for joining us. We want to get started tonight with our agenda. If someone can post the agenda in the comments in the chat, that'd be beneficial for those who may not have it. I know I have it, but everybody may not be able to see it. And so without further ado, I'll introduce ANC Commissioner Brian Thompson. You can start.
Thank you, Councilmember. Actually, can we pull the agenda up and we'll just talk through it for a bit. The goal of this meeting is to understand what, I guess, to divvy up the roles and responsibilities we're going to have for the next 5 meetings. And in that, we created an agenda to illustrate sort of an executive committee, as well as we're going to take the approach of dividing our committee membership up amongst the new Ward 8 ANCs. And I just felt like that was geographically sensible and convenient for understanding where we are and who we are as a group. And so there are the original or prior term 5 ANCs, 8A, B, C, D, and E, as well as with redistricting, ANCs 6D and 6B are affected by the new redistricting effort. So the goal here is to establish those roles, for us to sync on a schedule and to understand the resources that we have to go about executing our goal here of redrawing the ANC boundaries within the new Ward 8. And as we get down towards, I guess, section C of the agenda, you'll see that there are sort of details, if you will, relevant to how we're going to divvy up our responsibilities. So first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to serve as your chair. And in that, from my role as a commissioner, I felt it prudent to select a vice chair. And I don't think we need to deliberate too hard on this, but the role of the vice chair is just to serve in the presence of the chair, should the chair become unavailable for any reason, or sort of just as an existing or an additional go-to in engaging with the various other committee members as we go about shaping our new ward or our new ANCs. In that, I would like to request of those, and actually, I'm not sure, I'd like to know how many committee members we have present. I see we have 56 participants in the meeting. Can we do a quick roll call and I'll just count? Brian Thompson, Ward 8 Redistricting Committee Chair, present.
Trayon White, present.
Barbara Jones, present.
Sheila Bunn, present.
Ramona David Meadows, present.
Charles Wilson, present.
Maggie Edwards, present. Oh, sorry.
Monique Jill, present.
Juan Mason, present.
Jamila White.
Ab Jordan, present.
It looks like we have, I'm not sure, did I hear Marcus Coates present?
Marcus Coates present.
I also see Troy Presswood.
I'm present.
And did I hear DeJuan Mason? We also have Angela Copeland.
Here. Hi, Wanda.
Hello, how are you? And it looks like those are the 17 members that are currently present. Did I miss anyone?
I see Ab Jordan.
Yes,
we
he
got
said he
him.
was present.
More so with this view of the screen, we can see that there are 17 of us here. And I feel like that's fair enough for us to make the request for a self-nomination for vice president of this redistricting committee. And with the purpose of, like I said, supporting and supplementing the role of the chair as we go about our business. Since I can't obviously self-nominate, I'll ask for any volunteers to serve as the vice chair of this committee.
Not everyone speak up at one time.
So I see a lot of.
I'll serve, Marcus serve.
I'm sorry?
Marcus Coates.
Marcus, okay. All right. All right, well, Marcus has asserted himself as willing to serve as the vice chair. Is anyone else willing to contest that? All right, well, then I nominate Marcus Coates for vice chair of the Ward 8, 2022 Ward 8 Redistricting Committee. Can I get a second?
I second.
I second.
All right. As easily as we can, let's vote. All in favor of nominating Marcus Coates for the 2022 Ward 8 Redistricting Vice Chair, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I didn't think that was going to work, so I'll just call on the names that I see. Council member, what's your vote, sir?
We could probably, it sounded like it was a voice vote that we could probably just move forward with.
All right. All right. Well, it sounds like when we have a majority, somebody refresh me on parliamentary procedure.
So anyone, I heard, anyone opposed the motion? Any abstentions? Sounds like we have yes, it's passed.
All right, Marcus Coates, welcome as the vice chair of the 2022 Ward 8 Redistricting Committee. All right. Moving on in our agenda, as stated, now that we filled out a sort of executive committee, we are going to need to engage the existing ANCs. And the idea here was to have two members of the committee approach, outside of this executive committee, approach each of the existing ANCs. There are 7, so we will need some combination of 14 names to go about. And the role of this position will be to attend the 2 remaining ANC. I believe there's 8D has 3 remaining ANC meetings for this term, or for the tenure of this committee. To attend those meetings, engage and request to just provide a bit of information on our work, the resources we have available, which we'll get to, and any additional information that may be pertinent, such that as many members of our community, our Ward 8 community, are engaged or have the opportunity to be informed and engaged as we work towards meeting 5 Meeting 5 is where we hope to narrow our map options down to no more than 3. And then we will move on and vote at the 6th meeting to be held on March 30th for a final map to submit to the council. So the hope is that with all of these, there would be a nice, neat, even division of committee members amongst all of the existing ANCs. That's probably not going to happen, but I, already serving as an officer on ANC 8A, as well as Commissioner White, who's on this committee, is also an officer of ANC 8A, would like to not lead that effort to speak on it. So let's just start from the top. Can we get 2 committee member volunteers to attend the 2 8A meetings, February 1st and March 1st, 2022, 7 and 9 p.m. and take 5 minutes to speak on our redistricting efforts and how members of the committee can either submit commentary via email, and we'll get to that in a second as well, or attend the meetings and view them in our deliberations.
Hey, Brian, it's Ramona. I'll volunteer.
For 8A, thank you, Ramona. All right, can we get a second volunteer for 8A?
Angela Copeland, I'll go.
Okay. All right, moving on to 8B.
I'll do 8B.
I hear a voice, but I need a name.
Sorry, Brian, it's DeJuan Mason,
Okay.
and I'll do 8B.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else to join DeJuan on doing 8B, attending the 8B meetings?
Barbara Jones.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, moving on to 8C. So anyone available to attend the 8C meetings on February 2nd and March 2nd, 7 and 9 p.m.?
I'll do 8C, Brian.
Okay. Commissioner White. And who else is going to join Commissioner White in 8C? Do we still have 17 or do we have more than 17 committee members here now?
I see 17 that are here, including Councilmember White and
Okay.
Wanda Lockridge.
Well, then the goal here is going to be for those of us, the council member, Wanda and Marcus, to not take on these roles. So we're going to request that someone attend more than one meeting. But we're doing good so far. 8C, we have Commissioner White. Can I get another volunteer to attend the 8C meetings on February 2nd and March 2nd?
I can volunteer. Monique Job.
Monique Joe, thank you. All right, 8D. 8D meetings will be January 27th and February 24th and March 24th. I realize that that's 3 meetings, but all of those meetings occur before we vote, have our final vote. So
Brian, I'll do 8D.
thank you. Whose name was that?
I'm sorry, Sheila Bunn. Good evening.
Hey, Sheila. All right. All right, who else is willing to join Sheila Bunn in attending the 8D meetings on January 27th, February 24th, and March 24th?
And if there's not enough people to go around for 8D, I'm good with that. Monique is the chair of 8D and we can tag team and
Excellent.
yeah, so.
Excellent. All right. Moving on to 8E. Think we have a few more folks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we have a few more folks that can fill in for the remaining 3 commission dates. So 80 is meeting on February 7th and March 7th, 7 to 9 p.m. Can we get a volunteer from the redistricting committee, 2 volunteers to attend those 2 meetings and advocate for 5 minutes regarding our efforts to redraw the ANC boundaries?
I can volunteer for 8E.
Okay, what was, can I get a name?
Maggie Edwards.
Maggie, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, let's fill out the last 2 and then see if we can get some support on the last 3. 6D, those meetings are February 14th and March 14th, 7 to 9 p.m.
Hey,
David
Brian.
Meadows.
Oh, all right, one name at a time, and I just need to hear it so I can write it down.
I said,
David Meadows.
David Meadows for 6D, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I heard a second.
it was Troy was the second name. Let me just also say that I'm happy to backfill in other areas as well if you don't have enough folks.
Okay. Well, we still need to get through 6B, but I think I might take you up on that, Troy. For 6B, those meetings are February 8th and March 8th, 7 to 9 p.m. Volunteers to attend the ANC 6B meetings. All right, Troy.
Looks like I can do, I'm sorry, Brian, this is Dewan. It looks like I can do 6B on February 8th and March 8th.
Okay. Thank you, Dewan. All right. So we need a second for 8E on February 7th and March 7th, and a second for 6B on February 8th and March 8th. All at once. All right.
Ryan, I'll do 8E. This is Sheila.
Okay.
I'll back up whomever else signed up for 8E.
Thank you. That is Maggie Edwards, volunteer.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And we will send out an update with this updated roster after the meeting. So we just need one more person to join Dewan at the 6B meetings on February 8th and March 8th.
I'll do it, Brian. I'll back her up. Just Ramona, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, Ramona. All right. All right. I see there's a couple of questions in the chat, and as we go through this, I don't want to get too far down the line. Just give me a second to go back and thank you, Marcus. Everybody's thankful for having you as the vice chair. Marquis Cotton and Humam Abdul Malik, committee members, are present. Can you please speak up if that's the case? Okay, they were just saying they're here, not necessarily are they committee members. Do we have to be on it? So the question was asked, do we have to be on the committee to attend? For this effort, yes. The goal here is that those of us who are engaging on the committee to form this new Ward 8 or the new ANCs within Ward 8, take on the responsibility of being on the committee and therefore being informed. So feel free to attend the meetings. For those of you in the audience who are not committee members, feel free to attend, but also, note that this effort needs all of our support. We're all residents, and we're all here to make the best of this effort. So yeah, if you'd, Devin, if you'd like to attend the 8D meeting and lend your support to Sheila and Monique, please do. Let's see, there was another question. There was a question on Maggie Edwards and Sheila Bunn will be attending for 8E on those dates, February 7th and March 7th. And Angela Copeland raised the idea that we need to agree on specific talking points and messaging. I believe we can do that offline. We can communicate on that, but that's a good point. And thank you for that, Angela. I think that's going to be outside of the scope of this meeting, but that is something that we do need to do so that we all go to these meetings with unified talking points. And the question was asked on population requirements per ANC, like the wards. And that answer was provided by Wanda. Thank you. All right. So we have the names for the committee members. The next question I wanted to ask is, I don't think we meet the Office of the Chief Technology Officer's threshold for having a government email address. So this is sort of for anyone to answer on the committee. Is anyone opposed to us creating a Google email address and socializing that to field questions or comments as a catch-all? And the reason I say that is because as a commissioner, I have a government email address, but that's not something that's necessarily can be shared or viewed by other committee members. And so we want to be able to engage or have our entire Ward 8 constituency engage on this effort. Is anyone opposed to us setting up a Google email account for this effort? And from a risk vantage point, I think security would be the biggest thing in terms of maintaining access or fidelity of whatever access methods there are. But I'm sure we can figure out something if that doesn't scare anyone too much. All right. I don't hear any opposition, and thank you, Troy. I don't hear any opposition. So I think we'll try to go with that effort then to set up a Google email address, and it'll be something like, I don't know, ward8redistricting@gmail.com. I'm not saying that's what the address is, but it'll be something like that. And we'll get that information out to you soon, not too long after this meeting concludes. Wanted to go back to the schedule here. Tonight is about creating a level set for all of us to move out on engaging and informing the community and hopefully getting that engagement back. And we do have a decent amount of resources to get through in section C of tonight's agenda. But the next 3 meetings on February 2nd, February 16th, and March 2nd will be just the opportunity for maps to be presented. We're going to solicit maps in the same way they were done at the citywide ward redrawing. That tool has been established by the Office of Planning. I have not tried it out yet, but it is live from what I understand. And it's the same opportunity to go in, access or view the census data based on the SMDs, or is it the SMDs or the census tracts? I believe it's the census tracts. And the goal here will be to draw new SMDs and eventually ANCs within a certain threshold of 1,900 to 2,100 residents per area. That being the case, there's plenty of time, and I suspect we're allocating an hour for these meetings. We'll see what the engagement is to see how much time we'll need for those 3 interim public testimony and discussion meetings on how we move forward. But the goal is by March 16th, our 5th meeting, to end up with no more than 3 maps that align to the feedback that we've gotten up to that point. And from those 3 maps, if we can narrow those down, or we will narrow those down in that March 16th meeting, we will take a vote on March 30th and hopefully provide the same commentary or thinking as a backup to those maps for our due date of April 1, so that the council can go on with confirming or making adjustments as they deem. So that's all I have on scheduling, and I'm just going to look in the, I think Andrew confirmed that it's census tracts. Thank you, Andrew. Let's see. I'd like to recommend we identify a COVID-safe opportunity to have at least one in-person session so residents who are unable to engage digitally can participate. Okay. I hear that comment. I do. And that'll be something that we'll have to discuss within the public health guidelines currently under which the city is currently operating. But I do hear that need or that desire. In relative to scheduling, I think we are done. My goal here, if we were able to do the remainder of the agenda fairly expeditiously, is to do just a public comment period at the end of this meeting based on what we've discussed this evening, and see if there's any additional detail. Like I said, I like the idea of creating talking points. We've agreed on the Google email address as a catch-all for all of the committee members to access and review. And we have confirmed our ANC outreach members for each of the ANCs. So I'd like to move on to the resources that we have. And I am going to switch off or switch over to my live agenda on my desktop just so I can make sure. All right. So a major resource that we have for, I guess, getting an understanding of what our starting point will be the same website set up by Councilwoman Silverman, ElissaSilverman.com/redistricting. And that has been updated. There's additional information there to just sort of explain what we have here in section C of the agenda, the resources that we'll have. It's for those of you all who were paying attention during the original redistricting effort for the wards, it's going to be a lot like that. And I think just following in that vein, I see there are 21 of us here now. for those of us who are aware of how that original process went, we're going to try to map or mirror that as best possible. That being said, there are rules, and this was essentially a copy of the meat of it. We're going for the effort of creating SMDs that have approximately 1,900 to 2,100 residents, and relying on that population reflecting the 2020 census data. There are no minimum or maximum number of SMDs that must be in an ANC, but 5 to 9 is standard for the number of SMDs in a commission. And for example, right now in ANC 8A, there are 7 commissioners, therefore 7 SMDs. Another caveat is an ANC may cross a ward boundary, and I don't think we'll have that issue here, but to the greatest extent possible, we all need to remain in one ward. And can I just pause there and please put a comment in the chat? Does anyone have any issue or see any difficulty with us abiding by those general rules for going about our efforts to redistrict the ANCs? And Wanda, if you see anything or hear from anyone, or any of you committee members have anything to say on that, please feel free to speak up. Does anyone see any risks or difficulties? Because I think, maybe 20 years ago when Ward 7 moved west of the river, this may have been an issue, but I think no one else has the large geographical split within the ward. But I don't see that being a problem, because I think the boundaries are drawn fairly neatly. I pretty much memorized the Ward 8 boundaries as they've extended across the river now.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ab Jordan. The concern I have is that we're looking at 6B and 6D, and there's 22,401 people in 6B, 27,361 in 6D. And when we look at that in terms of the, then in combining that with Ward 8, where the largest single member, largest ANC only has 16,571 people, that's going to require some really serious investigation in terms of how do we do this in an equitable way. So as it stands right now, we need to really look. You raised a question about not crossing ward boundaries. In some places, they've allowed ANCs to remain, for example, in Ward 3, but they're located in Ward 4. So I don't know if, first, I don't know if we have anybody from 6 here now, but my concern is that really we're picking up almost 50,000 people. And we have to integrate that into the ward right now. And so that's going to be a problem. We really need to see how that impacts us. Right now, we have 5 ANCs with 7 ANC commissioners in each commission. And that works out so that you have if you have a split, you have an odd number of commissioners. And so that, there's always the point about having a tie break and what have you like that. From just the perspectives of administration of a commission. And I don't know when we look at the totals, what it works out when you talk about the criteria being 19 to 2,100. I don't know if we still will be able to have 7 single member districts in each ANC. So I think that we need to really get some handle on whether or not some of those folks in Ward 6 will remain in Ward 8, or whether they'll be able to continue to partner with the ANC, be a part of an ANC over in 6 itself.
Mr. Jordan, thank you for that comment. And I do hear that concern. I don't want to speak for the council member. So if the council member has any thoughts, I think the goal here is for us to move out as a one united Ward 8. And I believe that's possible with the redrawing of the map won't, the ANC maps won't look like they do now, given that westward weight of the ward population wise. But I think it's doable if we're open-minded about it. But Councilmember, do you have any thoughts to that effect?
I know one of the guiding principles we used was trying to keep ANCs inside their single member districts. We build around it, but it's tricky as you try to get to 2,000 based on the population. So I guess we have to analyze it as we go, kind of move the numbers.
Okay. So do you have an opinion on whether we would have ANCs that crossed ward boundaries west of the river, given the population weight on that side of the river?
You're talking about an ANC that was in this side of the river going to west of the river?
No. So as we withdraw, we would obviously have to engage the Ward 6 redistricting committee. But Mr. Jordan is saying that given the weight of the population of the ward as it's been drawn now going forward, it would be possible to divide an ANC west of the river between Ward 6 and Ward 8 in order to reach our population goals per SMD, per ANC. Do you have an opinion on that?
Looks like he may be frozen.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, I think we can get you it. I think you may have a weak signal, Councilman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you hear the question?
Those two ANCs in Ward 6 represent a 63% increase in the population in the ward. And I'm just saying that that's something that we have to take into consideration. But when the maps come and show us how we can do that, but again, let me just do this. I haven't added up the total number, but if you come up with
back.
All right.
So
how about this?
Can you hear me now, Brian? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Mr. Jordan, can you state your concern to the council member? And the question is, do you have an opinion on Mr. Jordan's concern? Because it will affect how we go about approach our options for completing our work.
I gotta hear his entire thought. My phone is going in and out, so if he can repeat that, it'll be helpful.
Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that the two ANCs that we picked up from Ward 6 represent a 63% increase in our ward. Our ward goes from 78,513 to 128,275 people. And so
that's not correct. Let me show you.
I'm looking at the figures, Wanda. I'm looking at the population figures that you have.
We added only about 8,000 people we had about 8,000 people. So I'm not sure we had to get to 100.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this. See, that was the other point I wanted to make. Do we have correct information about our population? Because I'm looking at the census data that you sent us on one of the tables, and it shows that for 2020, the population in 8B is 22,401, and the population for 8D is 27,361. So again, maybe we need to get the data out so that we can really understand? That's one of the questions I had. If it's only,
Commissioner, hi, this is David Meadows, and I'm a former resident of 6D. Now I'm a 8F maybe, but part of, not all of 6D has been redistricted. Most of 6D will retain in Ward 6, and so that's Andy Litsky and Southwest Waterfront, all of that area, and part of the over on the other side of South Capitol, but mostly it's going to be about 8,000 people from Ward 6 will be moved into Ward 8, and the 6B will be a little bit more problematic because those are some long entrenched Capitol Hill proper, as I like to call them, residents. And that commission 6B, Corey Holman now is the chair, but it has commissioners that have served for many, many, many years. But I'm hoping that there won't be a 6-8 like there is a 3-4 ANC. I hope that maybe just a new ANC 8F would be created. It would be probably the simplest solution. Of course, there is always ways that we can talk about extending like a SMD 8F01 across the 11th Street Bridge, so it would represent both sides of the river. Those are discussions that we look forward to having.
okay, well, the only question I raised then is that we need data that's accurate, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion because what was provided to me by the email, and as I start to look at it, won't help me in terms of understanding what it is we're trying to do. So we need a map that shows the new ward, and we need the population figures for those areas that were included, for each of the areas. I don't know if we're doing it by census tracts or what, but it would be helpful if we had that, because I'm looking at census tracts now, but they don't, as you said, they don't make a distinction between a division within a census tract, and so we need to see that.
And Wanda's going to get that from the Office of Planning, so they're putting that together.
Thank you.
All right. Well, and since you did ask for a map, that is part of one of our visuals for this evening. If we could go back to the agenda, please, on the screen. Let's see.
Give me a second. I'm pulling up the agenda now.
No worries. No worries.
And I'll pull up the map next. I think this is it.
Wanda, what was those maps we picked up today from the Office of Planning?
Those were the new maps for Ward 8.
Okay.
Are you able to see the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I just want to go back down to section C of the agenda.
Oh, one second. This is the wrong one. My apologies.
Well, no worries. Ultimately, if we can pull up, so we have 4 maps that were sent out yesterday. There are the current Ward 6 and Ward 8 ANC boundary maps. If we could pull those up, and the goal here is to juxtapose what we are coming from versus the options we have going forward. So after we look at the current Ward 6 and Ward 8 ANC maps, we'll look at the new Ward 6 and Ward 8 ward maps.
Is this one of the maps? This is the Ward 6. Is this the one that you wanted?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The Ward 6 and the Ward 8 ones, they have the red outline.
Okay, sure. Let me pull that one. But feel free to talk while I pull that up.
All right, no worries. So the goal here is that we're going to look at who all is coming in to the ward from Ward 6, and we're going to look at the shape of the ward boundaries. Now, east of the river, the ward boundaries didn't change. So in this effort of looking at where the current ANCs are, the Ward 6 boundaries are going to be a bit more relevant as we go about trying to redraw our districts. But since we have this current Ward 8 ANC map up, you can see just how large some of the current ANCs are. And to Mr. Jordan's point, whereas there's a lot of land here, I think as you go north and then west within the new Ward 8, the density is going to require these ANCs to get smaller just to meet the population numbers. Even if we do go with that option of having up to 9 SMDs in an ANC. I just wanted to point that out because these maps sort of illustrate how Ward 8 is changing relative to forming these ANCs. Just the size of them. As we gain more population, it looks like all of them will end up being a bit smaller. Can we see that Ward 6 map?
Sure, give me a second. Let me pull that
Brian,
one.
while you're checking that, is it correct that we have 2 current ANCs from Ward 6 coming over? Is that accurate?
So 6B and 6D for sure. Once we get this map up, as I could tell, there may be a small portion of a third current or former Ward 6 ANC that is also coming in the Ward 8. But if anybody can speak on that, I think it'll be clear once we get it up on screen. But if anybody can speak on that, the current.
I ask that because I think about is if it's a little over 8,000, that's 2,000 people per single member district. That's at least 4 people. I'm not sure who's moving over because some of the, as we heard earlier in the call, some of the current ANCs will lose some of its population in the redistricting, but they'll keep their single member district. So that's the tricky part. I don't really know how we're going to divide it up.
Yes, council member, there are actually 4 SMDs that's affected by the redistricting, and the current ANC commissioners will not be impacted. They will not move over to Ward 8 because they just happen to be outside of the boundaries.
Do you happen to know the ANC single member districts that are included? Because 6D had 7 single member districts and 6B had 9.
Yes,
So,
I have that information. 6B04, 120.
Can you go slow?
Sure.
6B04.
6B04 has 122 residents coming over.
Wanda, can you pause there? I just want to point out, so you guys basically look in the middle of the screen, just south of the Southeast Southwest Freeway, there's a small sliver of 6B04. Those, I'm assuming that's 122 people in about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks or so. That's south of the freeway and west of 11th Street that are coming out. Is everybody clear on that? Any questions? All right, please proceed, Wanda.
Sure. 6D02 has 1,453 residents coming over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll pause there again. Looking at the map, the new boundary line is South Capitol Street. So if you look at the bottom of 6D02, there's a gap. The line that kind of borders most of 6D02 running down the middle of the screen is South Capitol Street, and that's just going to continue on down. So I believe that's the stadium. Let's see, up to I, up to M. Yeah, I believe that's the stadium up to M Street, or the waterfront / stadium up to M Street is now part of Ward 8. Everything above M Street that is in 6D02, other than that little small easternmost divot of it, is staying in Ward 6. The boundary line being New Jersey Avenue up to H Street, which is where if you guys know where the Whole Foods is, the H Street and New Jersey Avenue Whole Foods is the northwesternmost boundary of the new Ward 8.
Wait a minute, if she can give us the specific SMDs, then we can try to plot that out for ourselves, because when you talk about New Jersey Avenue, that creates a problem for me right now. Monica, could you continue with the single member districts that were brought over?
Sure. 60, 6006, 967 residents. And the largest population will come from 6D07
Okay,
with 5,178 resident, giving us a total of 7,733 new residents.
so it's 6002, 6006, 6007, and 6B04.
That's
Those-
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The question is, does the Harris Teeter come over? The answer is yes. And I was questioning before whether any other Ward 6 ANCs are affected, and no, it looks like it's just 6B and 6D. So what I'd like to do now is move on to the new Ward 6 boundary maps that show the SMD populations. If we could put that on the screen.
Sure, I'll pull that up now.
Thank you. And the goal here is we've seen what current SMDs are coming into Ward 8 with redistricting. Now we'll at least be able to see what those boundaries are and have a slight breakdown on the population. Now, obviously, we'll like to know, well, what makes sense to draw the boundaries, and that's kind of the essence of our work here, is to figure out, based on the map we just saw and the map we're about to see, what the next steps are for drawing the new Ward 8 boundaries in the context of most of Ward 8 being west of the river, south of the river, if you want to look at it that way.
Is this the map you're looking for, sir?
Yes, ma'am. If you could
Okay.
scroll down towards the bottom and show the bottom half of 6. Or the top half of.
Oh.
I gotta get in this.
It's going to be a little difficult to read, but there you are.
Well, no, we just need to see, for everyone to see in the context of that old map. Can we scroll up or down? Can we see towards the bottom of this map? Where all right, zoom back in oh, I didn't. Can we see the river area of this map?
Okay, hold on. Is that a good view of what you're looking for?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that's interesting. We just said that there was a 6D ANC or SMD west of South Capitol Street that would be affected, and I don't see that being the case with the new boundary. It looks like everything on the west side of South Capitol Street below M Street is staying in Ward 6, and everything on the east side of South Capitol Street below M Street is staying, coming into Ward 8.
No,
Is anybody else reading that differently?
I'm looking at the single member districts that Mrs. Lockwood just read to us, and we extend on both sides of it.
So the gray line running along South Capitol Street is the Ward 6-8 boundary. And if you look at it, it's an overlay of the current SMDs. I guess I don't see how anything has changed below M Street. Does anyone else see that differently? I don't see
Yes.
that.
The boundary, it is a different, I mean, I can't see it right here, but there is a different SMD there, which is what Wanda mentioned earlier, that we were bringing over about 1,000 people.
Okay.
From that SMD into Ward 8, into the gray boundary area.
And on this map that he's given us, 6D02 extends up to Independence Avenue. So we really need a map that shows what the new boundary for the ward is. But if we're looking at the map we already have, and we're just including all of the territory or the boundaries for 6D02, 6D06, and 6D07, it extends beyond M Street. It goes up to Independence Avenue.
Yeah, but if you can see the screen, I don't know if Wanda, if you're able to zoom.
No, I can't see that. Yeah.
Everything in the gray area, not gray area, but everything within the gray boundary is the new extension of Ward 8. So we don't go all the way up to Independence. We're just picking up everything within this gray boundary.
Okay, so even in 6D02, there is a cutoff there. Okay, I understand it then. And that's why I was, see, I can't see that map. That I got it off of I printed it off, but I can't get it that big. And even with a magnifying glass, I can't see it. So I'm sorry, but okay.
Troy, thank you for explaining that. But I just need to understand it until we can get the redistricting tool map up. What west of South Capitol Street is now in Ward 8?
West of South Capitol Street in Ward 8. Nothing west of South Capitol Street is in Ward 8.
Okay.
Well, there are portions of 6D02. How can we say that 6D02 is in Ward 8? Because Wanda said that, but it's all west of South Capitol Street. And 6D07. So in 6D06, we really got, I mean, we really need a map that shows us this. Because there's SMDs that were listed. There are 3 of them that had boundaries that well, 2 of them at least have boundaries west of South Capitol Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are staying in, I mean,
that's
okay.
Ward 6 problem. I mean, to be honest,
the statement is true, but like they're staying in Ward 6. So they're, like Troy said, it's not our concern here. But you know, like I said, the goal was to look at what we had, the way that the bright red lines were drawn on the current A and C boundaries, and the SMD overlays are here as they were on that previous map of the current A and C boundaries, and to reflect on where the new ward boundary is and how those existing SMDs are going to fit in. This was just a visual exercise to reinforce what our goal here will be for the new Ward 8 northwest of the river. If we could, now I see there's a request to zoom in on the Navy Yard. This map, I mean, this map is helpful, but the redistricting tool and the ability to manipulate it, zoom in, abstract, click, etc., will be a lot more helpful than what we're trying to manipulate it or trying to even verbally interpret it here. So when we get there, when we get access to the new tool, and like I said, I didn't get a chance to check before this meeting went live, but I'm sure that tool will be up in the next 24 to 48 hours if it's not already live.
Mr. Chairman, it's not up.
It's not up? Okay. Well, once we get access to the tool, which has been promised to us, we will then be able to go about our work in a more efficient manner than using the existing map we have on the screen. Wanda, can we pull up the Ward 8 map showing the current SMDs?
Or let me pull that up.
All right, and I'm gonna just check the chat here. Is anyone not following the thinking here on just the visuals we put up in terms of where we're coming from and where we're going in redrawing the ANC boundaries using the census population tracts?
Mr. Thompson,
Carmen.
Chair Thompson, would be better if we had a clear, clean map and we draw our own lines and we could better understand where we are
Yes,
and
ma'am.
where we're going.
Yes, ma'am. And that is definitely the intent when we have access to the redistricting tool. Gosh, I can't imagine what this would have been like in 1990 or maybe even the year 2000, but the tool that we have for redrawing the ward boundaries, we'll have access to that for our ANCs. And I think it'll be a
Chairman Thompson, I was with the commissions on 2010 and 90, and it was easier than this. I'll be honest with you about it. Go ahead. You said you couldn't imagine what it was like, but I'm saying.
Well, with a static map, having the ability to manipulate a tool like that provided by the Office of Planning, I think is super helpful.
16. We're out of compliance right now. Let's see, 7.
All right, so we have the Ward 8, the current post 2020 census Ward 8 boundary map showing the current ANC boundaries and I guess to an extent the SMD populations. As stated before, the ward boundary between 7 and 8 east of the river did not change. But this just goes, this greater map goes further to illustrate the density that you find in the northern part of Ward 8 versus the density relative to the amount of land in the southern part. And so as we go about redrawing the SMDs / ANCs, it just lends to the expectation that boundaries will move, but also I believe the ANCs will likely get smaller than they are now, given that northern weight of population. Any questions on that? There's a question about how does this affect 8B05? My simple answer is not in any catastrophic way, of course. I just think that we'll have to figure it out by using the mapping tool to meet our goal of 1,900 to 2,100 residents in 8B05. And there's appears to be 1,909 right now. So, I mean, if everything else is perfect, we could keep the 8B05 boundary the same, but that's nothing we can promise until we go about our work in the next few weeks.
That's 2,000.
I also have another question, Chair Thompson.
Yes,
Had you ever thought about people who have done this in 2010 coming in to give us some pointers as to where we're going and doing an overlay of the map that you might have had in 2010 versus what it's going to look like now?
Thought about it in the sense that at least relative to Ward 6, Ward 7, and Ward 8, I did pay attention to the testimony. And, you know, I listened to those comments. I think that's why I got the opportunity to assume this role, is because I was listening, I was paying attention. But if you have any specific advice, feel free to speak on it.
Okay. I think it's like the gentleman just said, he put something in the chat. And then you can also use people that did it in 2010, like perhaps Reverend Motley and Ms. Seegers, Sandra Seegers. I mean, just as guests to ask any questions or any information that they can give us going forward that would make this task a bit easier.
I mean, that's fair. We are a redistricting committee and our membership is set, but you know, that is fair guidance or information for those of us on the committee who are going to propose maps, and the general public will propose maps as well as we move towards March 30th and a single map that we endorse. That's fair information. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to also add that all individuals, including those that you just mentioned, Reverend Motley, who I think is in the audience, and SS, I'm not sure if she's on the line. Everyone had been invited to join this committee, especially those who had experience in the past, to join to do just what you mentioned, Ms. Carmen. And we do have Ab Jordan, who sat on the last 2 or 3 also, who has expertise. So we did open this up wide to the community over a month for people to sign up, and we even opened it, you know, we extended the time frame. So, but yes, just wanted to add that.
I will say for any redistricting, any attendees not on the committee who would like to be a resource for committee members, please feel free to post your information in the chat and state that you'd like to be a resource and that you participated on prior efforts. And yeah, we'll capture that. Does that help in terms of the ability to leverage past prior experience for this effort?
I think it would help.
Okay, well, yeah, let's do that. If anyone has any prior experience and would like to be a resource for Ward 8 Redistricting Committee members, please post your contact information in the chat and state that, you know, you've worked on this sort of effort in the past and you'd like to be a resource.
And also, I have a question for Mr. Jordan.
Yes,
Is he still here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Carmen.
Mr. Jordan, what about the parks and the federal land? How is that affected?
Well, it's going to be incorporated into Ward 8, so it's not excluded from it. But when you mean, how does it affect it? It'll be a part of Ward 8.
This effort is based on census population and then the existing tracts for following the 2020 census. Federal land falls within census tracts. So, you know, that's just the fact that we'll take note of where needed in redrawing the boundaries. And at this point, that's all I had in the agenda. Does anybody have, and I'm sorry, I don't have this pulled up. Does anyone have the total new population of Ward 8 handy, that number?
Brian, I think it's 85,246, if I'm not mistaken.
85,246 Ward 8 residents. All right. All right.
Mr. Chair, I just have one, this is Ab Jordan again. I just have one other question. The rules provide for 1,900 and 2,100. Is there any deviation from that, plus or minus what? I mean, can you go lower than 1,900 or can you go higher than, or is that the maximum, the minimum and the maximum that you could go?
I think we're following guidance set by the council.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, do they have any wiggle room in it, so to speak?
Can Wanda or can anyone answer that?
Yes, that's the wiggle, the pursuant to the DC Home Rule Act, it's 2,000 votes, 2,000 people per SMD. And wiggle room is 5% plus or minus. So you got 1,900 or 2,100, but your goal is around 2,000.
That's fair. That sounds like mathematically sound to me, plus or minus 5%. And 2,000 is codified. So does that answer your question?
And so when you have 85,246 new Ward 8 residents, then you divide that by 2,000, you will get 42.6 SMDs.
All right.
7-person commissions. Almost, if you look at it.
Yeah, 42 commissioners, 43 commissioners, somewhere like that.
Yeah, that's, you could have 6-7-person commissions. So.
Okay.
Correct.
One point that was raised earlier, I forget by whom, was the need to pursue an odd number of commissioners. And as a second term commissioner, the ability to have to not be deadlocked in a vote, given how hard it is to prepare a vote, I'd say that'd be super useful to keep in mind as we go about forming ANCs and SMDs, is the need to remain an odd number, either 5, 7, or 9 within a commission.
Absolutely concur with you, Commissioner Thompson. And what we're looking at is it goes quite evenly with having, 6 commissions, 6-7-person.
Okay. Well, I am just gonna recap the meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I miss anything. But I believe we had about 21 of the redistricting committee members. We decided on a vice chair. I believe Marcus, your last name is Coleman?
No, Coates.
Marcus Coates.
Coates, I'm sorry. Thank you. Forgive me, Vice Chair. We agreed that we needed to have talking points as we go about engaging the ANCs at their monthly meetings over the next 2 months, to have them and their constituents engage and attend these meetings, the ability to submit questions in the chat, as well as to email us at our to be established Ward 8 redistricting Google email address. And once we create something that's sensible, we will get that email address out to the committee members, who can then further disseminate it to the SMD and the ANCs that they will engage in, and as well to anyone else they think would have a relevant contribution to this committee's efforts. We have a list of committee members to attend each of those ANC meetings, and I won't repeat all the names here. We did discuss the need to have an odd number of commissioners as we pursue creating the ANCs based on the SMDs, which are then based on the 2020 census tracts. We are looking to achieve a goal of 2,000 residents per SMD, with a plus or minus 5% variation from that 2,000, which is 19 to 2,100. And we have our next meeting scheduled for, out of the 17 things running through my mind, I should know the next meeting. It's February 2nd, 2022. In the interim, there are 2 things that, like I said, I need to get everyone, or we need to disseminate the new, and we need to disseminate the new Google email address. Meanwhile, for those of you all in the audience, I will give you my ANC email. It is 8A03@anc.dc.gov. But I do hope to have that Google email address for this Ward 8 effort stood up by the end of the week, or even sooner. And then we will be looking for the redistricting tool to go live from the Office of Planning so that we can utilize it in the same manner as was done with the ward redistricting effort. And I see Troy posted the link or the web address for Alyssa Silverman and the redistricting effort in the chat. That's also in tonight's agenda. Also, Wanda Lockridge, the councilman's chief of staff, has posted her email address in the chat. And I'll ask if there are any additional comments, questions from committee members, attendees who are not committee members, the general public. I'll give you a few seconds to post those questions in the chat.
Brian, I do have a question.
And there's also a member of the public that has a hand up as well.
All questions should come in the chat.
Sheila, go ahead, please.
Thanks. So I know just to get back to Angela's point about having concise talking points that all of the committee members can use when we do the community engagement with the ANCs. And I know we're gonna sidebar after this meeting is over, but when are we going to have that conversation? Because 8D's meeting is next week. And I know there's some other ones that are coming up. So just didn't want to forget about the committee having that conversation around unified talking points for the meeting. So we're all on the same page.
So my thought is talking points should be general and they should reflect the broad parameters in which we're engaging. They should allow, illustrate our timeline and the dates on which we're meeting, how to access the meeting, the tools that we're using, and our composition. I can promise those talking points by the weekend unless anyone else feels strongly that additional talking points aside from those should be added.
Brian, I have one question, and this might be a Wanda question.
Okay.
I saw on the agenda for the meeting dates for the task force, it says public comments and maps. So my assumption is that we want folks to create the maps, and then at those meetings, they're going to provide input around maps submitted or how they'd like to see those boundaries to look. Is that understanding correct for what's going to happen next?
That is correct. That's the same format that the redistricting committee for the wards took, and I thought it was useful and efficient to do it that way. So like I said, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I think the ward redistricting committee did a great job, and so we'll follow their lead from September, October, and early November, and we will take commentary during the meetings, but the goal is, and this is why we need to get this email address circulated, as well as we need to get that access to the tool, is any questions that folks have, as well as the ability to submit information within the tool. As I understand it, that tool will give Ward 8 specifically its own set of accesses and ability to draw. So we'll see the various options that folks are presenting relative to our redistricting effort. Any questions on that?
No, thank you for that. And I just brought that up so that those of us that are doing community engagement, we understand that that should be a part of the talking points to explain to folks how they can participate in this process. So just making sure that that's a part of the talking points.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And I believe, Jules, thank you for posting in the comments or in the chat. Jules has posted the link to view this meeting from the start in case anyone else who missed this, if you would like to forward that information. I don't see any additional questions in the chat, and I'm not hearing many more from the committee. So I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So
Let's
moved,
wrap.
Madam Chair. Sir Chair.
Thank you. Can I get a second? I believe that was the council member that seconded it.
I second.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
So
all
I do-
for attending.
I do want to say something before we close out,
Okay.
Brian.
Okay.
We had one member who was adamant about being on the committee long before we even formed this committee. And that's Miss Connie Mobley, who was on our last Zoom. We since lost her. And so we want to send our love, our prayers, and condolences to her family, friends, and loved ones. She was the mayor of my block. And so we want to honor her for her commitment to social justice in the community for over 30 years. So I wanted to add that to the conversation.
Rest in peace, Miss Connie Mobley, and to those of you all who are still here representing her, thank you, and thank her for her commitment to the community.
And may I just add, I'm sorry, if I can just add that her homegoing service is this Saturday at 10 o'clock. I will drop the information in the chat for those who may wish to pay their respects who do not have that information.
Can you email it as well? Can you send it Brian the email? Because once we log off, it's going to disappear.
I certainly will.
Thank you, Ms. Wanda. That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
And also council members and members, it's going to be on Facebook as well. It's on Facebook as well, the information about Miss Mobley.
Carmen, can I call you and get the Facebook information so I can send that out along with the information about the homegoing?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. The motion was made. It was seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Sounds unanimous to me.
Good night.
We'll see you on the second.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Yes, good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.